Hello, welcome to Whiskey for Beginners, a thoroughly amateur production. You can tell by the lighting, which is real milky and bright over here, and is definitely not bright over here, that this is a thoroughly amateur production. If you've watched my videos on this channel up to this point, you'll notice that I didn't flash the thoroughly amateur title cards that I've been using. And the reason for that is I'm going to try something different when I come to upload this video. It's the 2nd of April of 2023 when I'm making the video. When I'll get to upload it, I don't know. I try to upload at least one video a week on Sunday, which this is Sunday, by the way. Why am I not in church? If my schedule were different, I would be, but because I'm in asset protection and all the bad guys tend to come out at night, so I work late. So I get home on a Saturday night. By the time I get some supper and relax a bit and get to bed, if I tried to get up early enough to make it to church, I would be fit for no one. I wouldn't be any good to myself or those around me. But that is, of course, a digression. I've been using title cards for my videos, which is where I was supposed to be all along. And I just hold them up and I flip the page. And I'm going to try something different whenever I do get to this video, which is going to be a few weeks, because I try to keep several videos ahead and upload at least one a week, maybe two if I put a review up as well. But what I want to talk about in this video has to do with some slang. Now, every endeavor, every area of activity has its own slang. You go into architecture, you're going to find architectural terms. You go into asset protection, we have our own terminology. But I try to avoid jargon in all things. It's one thing to have your technical terms that make it easier to talk about something. And examples aren't coming to mind offhand. If I planned it out, I could have had this, but I don't script these videos. It's just me sitting down in front of my webcam and yapping. But there are some things that are just jargon, that have no real purpose, that don't serve any useful purpose. And in whiskey, you have the same thing. Some people will talk about a glass of whiskey as a dram. Well, a dram is a unit of liquid measure that's pretty much obsolete. I don't know anybody who actually uses it in his work. It's just a glass of whiskey. Call it a glass. I don't refer to a particular type of whiskey, say Old Forester 100 proof. I don't refer to that as a pour. Pour is a verb. I don't know if you like the Nero Wolfe Mysteries by Rex Stout. Stout's been dead since 1975, but he wrote about Nero Wolfe, the shall we say corpulent detective, and Wolfe said contact is not a verb. And Archie Goodwin said, yes, it is. I looked it up in the dictionary, and Wolfe says contact is not a verb in this house. Pour is not a verb in this house. Or excuse me, it's not a noun in this house. It is a verb. That'll teach me to be unscripted, right? I make mistakes. Thoroughly amateur. And one of the reasons I am doing things the way I am, part of it is just that's me. I'm a hick. Deal with it. If you don't like hicks, there are plenty of more polished whiskey channels out there, and you are more than welcome to go to them if they are serving the purpose that you need them to serve. I don't pretend that I'm going to appeal to every single body out there. But part of the reason why I am I do these things the way I do is I don't like scripted videos. And there's got to be a few more people out there like me who just want the guy or guys or whomever to get up in front of the camera and be themselves. Well, I can do that if I can't do anything else. But I want to give you three slang terms or three technical terms, as if you want to call them that have to do with whiskey. One of them is unicorn. Now, we all know what a unicorn is. It's a mythical animal, has the body of a horse. If you look at medieval paintings, it has the cloven hooves of a cow, and it has this horn coming out of its forehead, looks like a narwhal's horn. And a narwhal is an Arctic whale, and that horn is actually one tooth that grows out. Very interesting creature. God has created some fascinating stuff out there. But unicorn, as we think of it, you know, the rainbows and all this, or the unicorn and the maiden, all this kind of stuff, is a mythical creature. And so whiskey that is hard to find, that maybe is impossible for you to find, we call unicorn. And different places can have different unicorns. To a certain extent, Blanton's will be a unicorn wherever you go, or one of the Pappies. You know, these are bottles that, you know, the suggested retail price is going to be $100 or close to it. And people who are lucky enough to get one can buy it, walk out in the parking lot, hold it up, and easily get $200, $300, $400. There are some bottles of whiskey out there that on the secondary market will sell for $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000. I drink whiskey because I like to drink whiskey. If I'm going to have a bottle of it, I'm going to drink it. And I can't conceive that there's any whiskey on earth good enough to be worth $2,000. Not when there is fine whiskey for 20 or 30 or 40 bucks. But a unicorn is just that rare, and some people hunt unicorns. They'll walk into a liquor store. You got any Blantons? No? Bye. Why don't you buy a bottle of whiskey? If all you're going to do is have it on the shelf, what's the point? Now, that's my attitude. Other people are collectors. They collect whiskey the way some others collect first edition books, or they collect antique cars, or what have you. It's a mindset that I cannot comprehend. But if it works for you, fine, great. But that's what a unicorn is. It's a Randy Sullivan of Bourbon Real Talk. I'm trying to keep stuff in my head, and it's accumulating, and I don't always keep it well. But Randy Sullivan of Bourbon Real Talk calls this stuff unobtainium, and I like that one too. What's an allocated whiskey? That, as far as I know, only occurs in bourbon. I don't think anybody's having any trouble with rye whiskey or American single malt whiskey or corn whiskey or Scotch or Irish or Australian or what have you. It seems to be only a bourbon thing. And we are still in what they're calling a bourbon boom. Back in the 70s and 80s, there was kind of a drought. People didn't want to drink bourbon. They wanted white stuff, gin and vodka and who knows what all. I'm with Fred Minnick. I don't use the language he does because I know the origin of the term back in the 70s. But I'm with Fred Minnick. Vodka ain't worth nothing but hand sanitizer. They distill it at so high a proof it has no flavor left. That's why you have to mix it with something, because it doesn't taste like nothing. But that vodka drought went away, and a bourbon, did I say vodka drought? The bourbon drought went away, and a bourbon boom ensued, and we're still in the middle of that, and distilleries are increasing production. But when you consider that to get a straight bourbon, from the day it goes into the barrel until the day it goes into the bottle has to be at least 2 years. And if you're going to have a really good bourbon, it's going to be 4 years, 6 years, 10 years. There's some bourbon out there longer than that. Knob Creek, which is a basic bourbon. It's not highly expensive. It's not a unicorn. It's not allocated, and I will get to that. Don't worry. Knob Creek is 9 years from the day it goes into the barrel until the day it goes into the bottle. So you cannot ramp up bourbon production speedily. If they start today to construct a new distillery and new barrel houses to put the barrels in, it's going to be a year or two before that construction is finished and production begins. And it's going to be, say, 4 years after that before they start bottling that whiskey. So we're looking at 6 years from today before anything comes out of that new construction. And that means when there's high demand and it takes so long to satisfy the demand that there's a gap. You have demand at this level, but availability is at this level on some brands, not all. Knob Creek, I've already mentioned. There's plenty of it out there. You can get Old Granddad. You can get... my brain has gone completely blank. After 18 months of drinking whiskey, I can't think of bourbon brand. God, am I amateur. But there are brands out there that are easy to find. You can walk into the liquor store, you can go to the bourbon section, you can look and you can say, holy cow, so much whiskey, so little time. But there are other brands that are in such high demand that even if their price is not way up there, you still can't find them on the shelf. And whatever the price of bourbon that has that high demand, but there isn't that much of it, they allocate. Now, we have a 3-tier system in the United States, and I think it's stupid. But a distillery cannot legally sell, except in its own gift shop, directly to the person who wants to drink it. They have to sell to a distributor, and there are different distributors. Sometimes in each state there's a different distributor. Distillery has to sell to the distributor, who then sells it to the liquor store or to the restaurant. Because a distillery can't sell it directly to you, except in its own gift shop, can't sell it directly to the liquor store, can't sell it directly to the restaurant. And that's part of why the prices are where they are. Every time you add a layer between the producer and the consumer, it puts the price up, because every step, somebody's got to make a living, right? People complain about corporate profits. How do you think they stay in business to make this product you're buying? But that 3-tier system means that, say, Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace is selling to distributors all across the country. Here in New Mexico, apparently they're not selling much to the distributor. Because if you see Buffalo Trace on the shelf, I've seen it on the shelf once since I began drinking whiskey back in September of 2020. And I didn't realize just how scarce it is, and I didn't grab a bottle then. The thing is, I don't go out hunting every week. Some people once a week or whatever, they go to liquor stores, they hunt, they seek the unicorns. I go when I need another bottle, and I look for Buffalo Trace, and I haven't seen it. But that's an allocated whiskey. They allocate so much here, so much here. The distributor then allocates so much to this liquor store, so much to that. And sometimes, even though they're not supposed to, they tie this whiskey to that. So we'll give you 5 bottles of this unicorn if you'll push this other thing. But that's an allocated whiskey. They allocate so much here and there. Then there's the term dusty. Now that seems, from what I can gather, to have a little more flexible definition. My view of a dusty is it's something that they're not making anymore. It's been sitting on the shelf somewhere for so long it's accumulated dust. If they change the label or the mash bill or the aging or whatever today, then tomorrow the old one is not a dusty. There for a while, Knob Creek They took the age statement off because they just didn't have enough barrels of Knob Creek quality bourbon to make sure that it was all 9 years or older. Because as you'll remember from the video, I think I did a video on it. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it somewhere. The age on a bottle is the age of the youngest whiskey in that bottle. If it's 9 years, then it might have 9-year whiskey, 11-year whiskey, might even have 15-year whiskey in there, but nothing is younger than 9. Well, they didn't have enough 9-year-old whiskey to keep putting that on the Knob Creek bottles, and so they took it off for a while. I don't know how long. And then they brought the age statement back. Well, those bottles without the age statement are not dusties. I'm not even sure there's any still around. People probably drank them up. But you get something like, just to use this example, Four Roses, when it was still cheap whiskey, before they went back to making good bourbon, it was a cheap blended American whiskey, not bourbon. Well, a bottle of that might have been sitting on the shelf for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever. That would be a dusty. I'm not sure from what I've understood that anybody would want to drink it, but that would be a dusty. So unicorns, allocated whiskeys, and dusties, they're all kind of related. And make sure I do in my list of videos that I have done this one. Unicorns, dusties, allocated whiskey, it's all related stuff. It basically has to do with demand being here, production or availability being here. How do I turn my hands so they look good? Most of the time I don't even see myself because I'm looking at my notes on the screen. These are things that you might become interested in, you might not. If you're like me, all you care about is how does the whiskey taste? Can I afford the whiskey? Those things are paramount with me. If somebody was to give me a bottle of Blanton's, I would not turn it down. I would say thank you. I would mean it. I would be sincere in my gratitude. I would try it. But would I go out and hunt up a bottle even at MSRP, which is 60 or 80 bucks? I don't remember. No, I wouldn't. I can't afford that. And there's so much good whiskey that I can afford. If somebody were to give me a gift of a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle 23, would I accept it? Yes, with great thanks. I would be effusive. I want to try it. Would I go out and buy it at whatever it costs, $100, $200 at suggested retail? No. Would I even consider going to the secondary market? You bet your sweet bippy I would not. I can't afford that. And I believe I said at the beginning of this video, I can't see that any whiskey can possibly be that good. And I don't suffer from FOMO. That's an acronym, fear of missing out. I don't care if I miss out on this stuff. I got good whiskey. Why should I care about that stuff that I can't afford anyways? So I'm trying to wrap this up and doing a early amateur job of it. Unicorns are stuff you can't find. Allocated whiskey is where there's so little of it available. They say so much goes here, so much goes there. And dusties are bottles that have been around for so long they've accumulated dust. And I believe that's it. Y'all have a good day. I don't have any great philosophical message for the end of my videos. I don't have a show philosophy. I don't have a standard closing. But if you're drinking whiskey, savor it. Enjoy the aroma and the taste, and don't get drunk. That ruins the enjoyment of the whiskey.